The wind off the lake carried a chill that morning, sharp and steady like it knew what was about to happen. I parked my truck by the gravel shoulder, stepped out and stared at the old bridge, my great-grandfather's bridge, stretching quietly across the narrow spillway that fed the lake. The sunlight hit the rusted iron railings, the faded plaque that read, "Built 1923 in memory of James Walker," and the ripples that danced beneath it. It wasn't just a bridge. It was the spine of our town. It connected generations, weddings, funerals, fishing trips, and midnight walks. And for me, it was a promise kept alive, that we belonged here long before there was ever an HOA, or fancy lakefront resorts, or bylaws written by people with manicured hands and short memories. But all that changed last week when the HOA mailed me the letter, a notice printed on glossy paper with the HOA's emblem shining in gold. The bridge has been deemed structurally unsafe and will be removed effective immediately. Prescott Lake Homeowners Association. Linda Prescott, the HOA president, signed it herself. Her signature looked like a knife slash. I stood there now, remembering her voice from the meeting. Sharp, commanding, dismissive. She'd waved her clipboard like a sword, saying, "We're doing this for safety. Mr. Walker, liability doesn't care about nostalgia." I'd told her she had no authority over that bridge, that it stood on private family land. But she just smiled that HOA smile, the one that says we make the rules now. As I walked across the bridge, my boots echoed on the weathered planks. The boards creaked, but they held firm, strong as they were a century ago. I could almost hear my great-grandfather's hammering, see the sweat on his brow, feel his pride in every beam. Beneath the bridge, the dam's spillway rumbled faintly. Most people didn't know the dam was still privately owned, by me. My great-grandfather built it before the HOA even existed. It fed their precious lakefront resort, the one they bragged about in brochures and charged newcomers extra to maintain. And that's when it hit me. They had no idea how much power that dam still held, and how quickly the lake could turn into a muddy field if someone wanted it to. I leaned on the railing, staring at the calm water. The HOA wanted to erase history. Maybe it was time I reminded them who really owned the story. The wind picked up, rattling the old sign again. In the distance, I saw a group of people in bright vests, HOA contractors, no doubt, marking stakes along the road leading to the bridge. Linda Prescott stood among them, clipboard in hand, barking orders. I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Tomorrow, the HOA planned to hold their official crisis intervention meeting. And I planned to be there, with every deed, map, and document my family ever kept. Because if they wanted a war over this bridge, they just declared it. The next evening, the community hall buzzed with tension long before the meeting began. Rows of folding chairs filled the space, neighbors, board members, and curious newcomers whispering over coffee cups. At the front, under a banner that read, "Prescott Lake HOA Emergency Session," stood Linda Prescott herself, clipboard tucked under one arm, her expression sharp enough to cut glass. I walked in late on purpose. Let them see I wasn't intimidated. "Ah, Mr. Walker," she said into the microphone, her voice syrupy and mocking. "Thank you for joining us. We were just about to begin reviewing the safety report for the bridge you seem so emotionally attached to." Laughter rippled through the crowd. I ignored it and took a seat in the front row. My folder of documents, property deeds, dam licenses, survey maps, sat heavy on my lap like a weapon I hadn't drawn yet. Then she introduced him, the engineer. A man in a wrinkled shirt and shiny shoes who looked more like an insurance adjuster than someone who worked with steel and stone. He clicked a slideshow onto the screen. Each image showed the bridge in unflattering angles, cracks exaggerated by shadows, rust that could have been wiped clean with a brush, captions screaming structural failure. He spoke with too much confidence, too little data. "This bridge," he said, "poses an imminent risk to public safety. Any delay in removal increases liability for the HOA and its members." I stood. "Excuse me, liability for the HOA?" I said, my voice steady. "That bridge isn't under HOA jurisdiction. It's on my land, privately owned since 1923. The HOA can't touch it." Linda's smile was thin. "Oh, Mr. Walker, with all due respect, that's what you believe." Our attorney reviewed the boundaries. "The bridge falls within the shared easement of the community recreational zone." "That's false," I said, holding up the deed. "This was never rezoned. You can't change history because it's inconvenient. The room erupted in murmurs. Someone whispered, "He's right, it's been there forever." Another said, "Why tear it down? It's part of this place." Linda tapped her microphone. Snap. "Order, order, please." Her voice cracked like thunder through the hall. She turned back to me. "This isn't about nostalgia, Mr. Walker. It's about progress, about keeping this community safe and modern." "Then why bring in a fake engineer?" I asked. "He hasn't even filed an inspection report with the county. You just needed someone to say what you already decided." Her face reddened. The engineer stepped back. For a brief second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not confidence, but fear. But then she straightened her clipboard like armor. "The board will vote," she said coldly. "All in favor of bridge removal?" Hands shot up, fast, rehearsed. Most didn't even look around. "All opposed?" she asked. Mine was the only hand raised. "Motion carried," she declared. "Demolition will begin Monday morning." Silence. Then a round of polite claps. The kind that sound like nails being hammered into a coffin. I gathered my papers, trying not to show the anger burning in my chest. When I reached the door, Linda's voice followed me. "You can't stop progress, Mr. Walker." I turned slowly. "You're right," I said. "But sometimes progress forgets who built the road first." As I stepped outside, the night air hit like ice. I looked toward the lake, its calm surface glowing under the moonlight. And for the first time, I didn't see a reflection of peace. I saw leverage. I saw the dam. And I saw a choice that would make sure Linda Prescott never forgot my name again. By Monday morning, the sound of diesel engines echoed down the valley like thunder. I woke before sunrise, brewed my coffee in silence, and watched from my porch as the first trucks rolled in. 2 excavators, a dump truck, and a handful of contractors in orange vests. At the front of the convoy was Linda Prescott's white SUV, the HOA emblem gleaming on the door like a badge of conquest. She stepped out with her clipboard and a smile sharp enough to split stone. "Morning, Mr. Walker," she shouted across the fence. "We're just following the board's decision." Her tone was syrupy, but her eyes were hungry. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked down the dirt path toward the bridge, my boots kicking up dust as the rising sun lit the old structure in gold and red. It looked fragile, yes, but proud, standing against the mist like an old soldier refusing to bow. Linda followed, heels clicking on the asphalt. "You can watch if you'd like," she said. "But please stay out of the work zone." The foreman, a heavy-set man in a hard hat, gave me an uneasy nod. "Sorry, sir, HOA orders. We've got permits." "Show me," I said. He hesitated, flipping through his clipboard. I was told to proceed. Paperwork's coming from the office." "Then you're trespassing," I said. "This bridge isn't HOA property. You're standing on private land." Linda stepped between us. "Enough of this," she barked. "If you want to play lawyer, take it to court. But right now you're obstructing a community operation." I stared at her, calm, steady. "You're making a mistake," I said softly. "One that's going to cost you more than you realize." She smirked. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's a fact." And then, with a wave of her hand, she gave the signal. Engines roared to life. The first excavator rolled forward, its arm rising like a beast preparing to strike. I watched in silence as the claw sank into the bridge railing, tearing away a century of history in one brutal motion. Wood splintered. Iron groaned. The plaque, built 1923, tumbled into the dirt with a dull final clang. I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to shout. They had no idea what they were destroying. By noon, half the bridge was gone. By sunset, the road that once connected generations was nothing but a pile of rubble and dust. Linda walked to the edge of the destruction, proud and satisfied. "Clean work," she said to the crew. "Let's move the debris out by tomorrow. The lake view will be even better now." I turned away before she could see my face. That night I returned with a flashlight and my old notebook, the one with my great-grandfather's sketches of the dam system. Every valve, every gate, every maintenance key, and all still in working order. They thought they'd taken my bridge. But what they didn't know was that the lake and their lake still answered to me. As the moon rose, I stood by the dam's control shed, hand resting on the old wheel. I could hear the lake behind it, still patient, unaware. "One turn," I whispered, "and everything you built on stolen land will sink in mud." I didn't move it. Not yet, because revenge, like water, is best released at the perfect moment. For 3 days I watched the lake in silence. The HOA had cleared every trace of the bridge, every plank, every beam, every memory. They even put up a new sign by the roadside that read, "Private property, HOA maintenance area, no trespassing." The irony almost made me laugh. Neighbors passed by shaking their heads. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered, "You should have sued them." But I didn't answer. Because I wasn't done yet. Linda Prescott, on the other hand, was having the time of her life. She gave interviews to the HOA newsletter, bragged about community safety improvements, and even held a small ribbon-cutting event beside the rubble. She smiled for photos, called it the first step toward a modernized lakeside experience. What she didn't mention was that the water level in the lake had started to drop. Slowly at first, then more noticeably by midweek. She blamed it on evaporation, but I knew better. Each night I opened the old dam valve just a little more. Not enough to draw suspicion, just enough to let the lake breathe, to remind it who it truly belonged to. By Thursday, boats were grounded near the shore. The resort's floating dock tilted awkwardly, half sunken in mud. Homeowners complained that their scenic lakefront now looked like a drained fish pond. The HOA's group chat, from what one neighbor secretly showed me, was in chaos. People were furious. They blamed faulty infrastructure, heavy rainfall, broken gates, and anything but the truth. Then came the emergency notice. All residents are required to attend a special HOA meeting at 7 p.m. to address the lake drainage crisis. I smiled. That night, the same hall where they mocked me was packed again. Linda stood at the podium, her voice tight. The confidence from last week replaced by barely hidden panic. "Residents," she said, "our engineers are investigating the issue. There appears to be a malfunction at the dam structure. We're in contact with the county and—" "That won't be necessary," I interrupted. Every head turned. Linda froze. "Mr. Walker," she said, her tone warning, "this isn't your meeting." "Actually," I said, "it is. Because the dam you're talking about, the one controlling your lake, doesn't belong to the county. It belongs to me." Gasps rippled through the room. I walked forward and placed a thick folder on the table. "Here are the original deeds," I said. "Signed in 1923 and reaffirmed by every generation since. That lake exists because of the dam my great-grandfather built. You bulldozed his bridge, his work without permission." Linda stepped forward, voice trembling. "You can't prove—" "Can I?" I said. "Check with the registry. Or better yet, step outside and look at what happens when you anger the man who controls the water you swim in." A neighbor near the window shouted, "The docks! They're sinking." Chaos erupted. People ran outside. Through the glass we could see the lake line collapsing. Water draining faster now, churning through the spillway like a beast finally unchained. Linda spun toward me, eyes wide. "What did you do?" I looked her dead in the eye. I reminded the HOA what happens when they destroy history. The floor trembled faintly beneath us as the spillway roared louder. The once perfect lakefront view was turning into a field of mud and stranded boats. Linda dropped her clipboard. Papers scattered like confetti. "This is illegal!" she screamed. "You'll ruin everything!" I leaned close. "No, Linda. You did that the moment you touched the bridge." And with that I turned and walked out into the night, the roar of rushing water behind me sounding like applause from ghosts long forgotten. By dawn, the lake was gone. What had once been a sparkling resort vista was now a cracked plain of mud, reeds, and the ghostly skeletons of old docks sticking out like broken ribs. The air smelled of wet earth and loss. The HOA group chat was silent for the first time in years. No arguments about paint colors, no passive-aggressive reminders about trash bins. Just silence, heavy, uneasy, and raw. Linda Prescott hadn't been seen since the night before. Rumor was she tried to reach the dam in the dark, yelling orders to anyone who'd listen. But by the time the county arrived, the water was already gone. When I came back that morning, a few neighbors were standing near the empty lake bed. Their faces said everything: shock, disbelief, maybe even guilt. One older man, Mr. Daniels, stepped forward. "You really did it," he said quietly. "You drained it." I didn't respond right away. I just looked at the horizon, where the bridge once stood, where my great-grandfather's work had connected both sides of this valley. "I didn't do this to hurt anyone," I said finally. I did it to make them remember. That bridge wasn't just wood and nails, and it was a promise. They broke it. He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. Guess they finally understand what they took. By noon, reporters started showing up. Drones buzzed overhead. The HOA tried to control the story, but the truth came out fast. They'd destroyed private property, ignored legal ownership, and manipulated evidence to push their agenda. Their president, Linda Prescott, resigned within the week. The HOA board dissolved shortly after, but I never celebrated, because when I stood by the edge of that empty basin, watching the last trickles of water seep into the mud, I realized something painful. Winning didn't bring the bridge back. It didn't bring back the laughter of my grandfather or the sound of his hammer echoing across the valley. The water would return someday. Nature always heals. But history needed people willing to defend it. So I rebuilt. Not the bridge, not yet, but the small dam house beside it. I placed a wooden sign on the front that read, Walker's Crossing, established 1923, never forgotten. And sometimes when the wind blows across the valley, I swear I can still hear the creak of the old bridge, proud, unbroken, and waiting.